Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Grindstone Developments Truck Series, live tonight with the third to final race of the season as we make our second stop at a super speedway style track. It's EchoPark Speedway, home to the EchoPark 120, and as always, thank you all so much for tuning in. You're watching Austin Green on PGR eSports. Well, if you missed out last week, we had a thriller at Daytona. Craig Janczak was the man who made it out in a last lap full of chaos, and he is going to try to see if he can go back-to-back with a win here tonight at Atlanta. Before we get into all the details and storylines, I want to get right down track side. Qualifying is complete. Get into tonight's starting grid. The man who will roll off on the pole for the EchoPark 120 is John Ledger in the 19 machine. Puts down a 31.9 to get himself that front row starting position. He'll have the 7 of Tyler Meeks, the first Ford in the field tonight, who will roll off from the outside in second. It's going to be George Young in the 48 back in third. He'll have one of the part-time drivers this season, but one of the former champions in James Harris to his outside in fourth. Brock Whitehead and Jason Nethery, two of the drivers that have been consistent this season but are still looking for their first win. They will roll off from row number 3. Brad Thacker in the 56 will start 7th here tonight. He'll have Zachary Crabtree to his outside in 8th. Another one of the Whitehead Racing drivers, Charles Whitehead, will start 9th. And last week's winner at Daytona, Craig Janczak, will start from 10th. Back in row number 6 on the inside, it's going to be William Mann Jr. in the 29, and to his outside, it'll be Brian High in the 13 machine. And the last man to start in the field here tonight, another one of the Chevys, it's Chris Logan in the number 70. Well, Atlanta Motor Speedway, a lot of similarities to Daytona, but at the same time, different in a way. Only a mile and a half in total length here for this racetrack. It got a reconfiguration, though, back in 2021, and since it reopened, now 28-plus degrees of banking in the corners, and it races just like what you would see on a Daytona or Talladega. So we're going to be talking about the draft all night. Guys pushing and shoving. Pit strategy could be important if we stay green long enough. And you look at the rest of your race info, we're going to go 80 laps here tonight, 70% fuel, 2 tires as always with that 1 fast repair in your back pocket, fixed setups, and then 2 green-white checkers if we were to need them. Track temp, by the way, going to be starting out at just under 80 degrees, so grip should not be a major issue for these trucks. Well, everybody getting one final check of the tires before the iRacing.com pace car will make the left turn. And we mentioned just 3 races left to go in the season. That includes the one right here tonight. So running out of opportunity for some of these guys to move up into the podium in the championship battle. The iRacing.com pace car pulls off. Field is going to work up into the Geico restart zone. John Ledger leads us to green. We are racing at Atlanta. Field now up to full speed down the backstretch for the first time here tonight, 2x2, but the man who leads the way, the 7 of Tyler Meeks, trying to get clear before they exit turn 4, but he's not going to be able to do it this time. They'll stay side by side back to the line, and it's the outside lane that's got the momentum early. How about further back, already 3 wide? That was William Mann Jr. on the 29 Sun Drop machine. It was caught in the middle, and he was able to quickly get back to 2x2. It looked like the driver who he was splitting at least was Zachary Crabtree in the 54, losing a couple spots here in the early going. But you look for some of the favorites here tonight. The 55, James Harris, has obviously got to go to the top of that list. He was at the front towards the end of the race last week. Unfortunately, things just not quite playing out for the driver out of Texarkana, Texas. The man who won last time we were at New Atlanta was Kevin Kirchar. We've seen him a couple times this season, but we don't see him in the race tonight. Onboard view here early on with the number 55. This is one of the Chevys in the field working together with one of the Fords. That's Tyler Meeks just in front of him. But you notice the pace and what you got to do to make a lane work here at Atlanta Motor Speedway. You've got to push down the straightaways. And something we're not seeing a lot of right now is pushing in the corners. That is something these drivers may start to risk, especially as we get later in the going. You see the sun also starting to set just past the grandstands as you enter turn number 1, so that's something else that these drivers are going to have to keep in mind as this race goes on. Pit strategy could be something else that starts to come into play later, but we'll talk about that as it gets a little bit closer. Brad Thacker made a quick dip to the inside right there. Maybe just looking for a little bit of clean air. And finally, the 7 of Meeks is going to be able to get clear. He'll drop down to the bottom. And that's going to shuffle this high lane up once again. John Ledger, first time that he'll have the opportunity to do a little bit of pushing right now. And remember, with this race being 8 laps, trouble. Whitehead into the wall. Further back in the field, the 51 with a pretty big hit. That was coming through the quad oval. It's not going to bring out the caution, but for Charles Whitehead, that certainly looked like could be some significant damage to the right front, and it is. Not sure if it broke any suspension components, but you can certainly see that right front is crinkled in. It almost looks like that tire's wobbling around a little bit. And we'll go to the onboard view here. He is very slow. I would assume he's going to take this truck to the pits. We'll find out right here. And he is not. So for now, Charles Whitehead chooses to stay out. Let's go back here. We're going to have to rewind this the manual way because we didn't get any data of this being an actual incident. But you obviously saw him hit the wall here, and this was coming out of the quad oval. A little bit of an interesting spot to do it, unless, of course, there was a little bit of contact. So we're going to go first here to the aerial chopper view and watch the 51. You see kind of right in the middle of your screen. He's running just in front of the 97 of Janczak. He's got the 61 of Brock Whitehead, his teammate, to the inside. And as they're coming out of the quad oval, just gets a little bit loose. Actually, that's as they're entering the quad oval. Tries to save it. But on the correction, in the process rather, he slides up into the outside wall. That's a really interesting look here. You know, obviously the travel at Atlanta, a little bit different. We see this at a couple tracks. Texas is another example. Charlotte, where you can't necessarily wait until you're getting towards kind of that kink in the quad oval to turn the wheel. And that's exactly what Whitehead does. He kind of waits, and then when he goes to turn the wheel left, just looks like the back end gets a little bit light, gets him out of shape. And that is ultimately what is going to now bring him down to the pits here with only 8 laps in the books. He's going to get some repairs before he ultimately brings that truck back out on the racetrack. Probably hoping for a caution, but he's not going to get it. Meanwhile, just about all the trucks that started this race still in the lead pack as it goes all the way back to about 8th place right now. A second pack has developed. Before we get to them, though, how about James Harris in the 55? Was doing all the pushing early, and now finds himself out in front, further back in this group. Brock Whitehead was thinking about 3 wide here on the 34 Nethery, but he's going to cut him a break for the moment. And obviously, if you're Nethery, you got to be so disciplined. I think Brock started to feel like it was just getting a little too sketchy running up there without being able to push to actually get this line going forward. And that's going to cause Nethery to jump in line. I would assume the 48 of Young here probably going to do the same relatively soon. And that issue with the 51 of Whitehead caused some trouble for some of the guys that we had circled as an opportunity for them to win this race. One of those being last week's winner, and that is, of course, the 97 of Craig Janczak. And you notice right now for the driver of Pennsylvania, finds himself currently in 9th, but the problem is he's about 2.7 seconds behind that lead group. You got to get within about a second and a half or so to really be able to utilize the draft. Now, I would say if they kept racing, he's still got an opportunity to get back up here, but with those guys kind of settling down for the moment, this could make it a tough spot here for the 97. There's the onboard view for Craig Janczak as they're catching up now to the 51 of Whitehead. Janczak's going to go around. William Mann Jr. will follow. And that is the 51 again going a lap down here through the rest of the field. Zachary Crabtree and Chris Logan, a tandem duo right now for Chris Logan right here. Not the best start to this race. I'm not sure if he was able to qualify or not. I don't believe he did. But obviously had to start in the back of the pack, and the trouble with any sort of a checkup is that's the result. Sometimes you can lose that lead group. So those guys are going to have to hope for a caution before this thing is all said and done. Well, if you're just joining us, we appreciate you being here. You are watching the Grindstone Developments Truck Series with the EchoPark 120 from Atlanta Motor Speedway. Third to last race of the season. We talked about the schedule last week. We'll talk about it again at some point here tonight. But the other thing worth mentioning is always what the point standings are looking like. At this point, really only 2 guys in the fight for the actual championship. That, of course, being Bryce Rayner and Craig Janczak. And for Bryce Rayner, it's going to be kind of in every race to try to maintain that lead. The problem is that Bryce Rayner is not in the field here tonight. So it's a big opportunity for Craig Janczak to try to close in, or more likely option rather, take over that championship lead once they leave Atlanta here tonight. But for John Ledger, Randy Sample, Tyler Meeks, those guys all still fighting to finish on the podium. And then, of course, you've got a few other drivers, Jason Nethery, Brad Thacker, George Young, all trying to break into the top 5 before the season is all said and done. Well, this front pack had gotten single file here for a few laps, but you notice they've gotten racy once again. Brad Thacker still on the inside doing all the pushing for the 55 of James Harris. And it almost looks like for Harris right now, he's trying to take care of these Goodyear tires, at least the best that he can. It's really tough to do here, especially when you're trying to lead the way. It's a little bit of a different feel, but now you see Thacker going to make a big jump to the outside. The 56 wants the lead. Gets down on the door. You got to side draft him back here through the corner and carry the momentum down the straightaway. Thacker's got some help here. Tyler Meeks was looking to push trouble. That's going to turn the 56 back into the outside wall. He goes. Big hit for the 7, the 56. Looks like the 19 at Ledger was collected as well, and the 48 of George Young has also got damage. And what is your first caution of the night with 15 laps complete? And one other truck stopped down below the apron. That's the 54 of Zachary Crabtree. Can't tell if he's really got any damage, but certainly wrapped up in this incident as well. And that was one of the, I would say, trouble spots coming into Atlanta, and obviously a tough spot for it to happen there right on the front stretch. Was going to be how much pushing are you willing to do early. There's a lot of risk versus reward that goes into this track, especially when there is still so many laps to go. Everybody's got that one faster pair, so it's not going to be a race ender, but it is definitely going to put a few drivers behind the sticks for the rest of this one. Let's go back and take a look here at where it all went wrong. Watch the red and black 7. Tyler Meeks, he's in the Ford. Up top, he's doing all the pushing, and right as he gets this run here, as he's trying to get to the back bumper of Meeks, he's just going to get a little bit offset, and he's not able to lift and realign in time. Gets him in the left rear, and it turns the 56 right down into traffic. He gets into the 55 of Harris. That shoots it back up the track, and there's that big hit into the outside wall. I think Ledger and Meeks also with pretty heavy damage as well. And then you saw a couple of others there sliding in as kind of a third party in this incident. And this is also going to add a little bit of a strategy, if you will, regarding the pit cycles. Get into that in just a moment. Watch it again in full speed here. You see Meeks, you know, he could have been trying to go 3 wide. I just don't really think that's what he was doing. And obviously we'll get an onboard view here in just a moment. I really think that he was just trying to line up Thacker for a push, and, you know, he kind of misjudged the alignment there. Got a big run. Next thing you know, the 56 is sideways. Watch it from the cockpit view. You notice he's got this run. He's gearing up. It's going to push him, Yeah, you hear him lift, so he's definitely not trying to split. But even when he lifts, that run just too much for him to be able to try to get off the back bumper of the 56. And it leads to your first caution of the night. Not sure how Crabtree got collected in this, by the way. We saw him spin down towards the apron right at the last second there. So we'll watch this one more time from the tower view. Actually see if we can get a little bit of a better angle. There's TV2. Yeah, big hit for the 56. And then, man, gets wedged back into the wall. You see the 7, all 4 tires up off the ground. And then there's the 48 of George Young involved. And the last question here was, does Crabtree get involved? He's towards the back of this. Oh, he doesn't see it. Starts sliding late. Maybe just locks up the brakes a little bit. Goes for that slide to miss it. Good job not getting involved in the wreck. Certainly a close call for him as well. So as we turn our attention now, back live on the racetrack, 17 of 80 laps in the books here for the EchoPark 120 from New Atlanta Motor Speedway. And the lights are still on the pace car, so we're going to go around at least one more time. Brock Whitehead, though, being scored as your race leader at the moment. He'll line up on the front row. It looks like Tyler Meeks, William Mann Jr., Craig Janczak, and a few others here are going to line up as they're still getting the timing sorted out. 56 at Thacker with a little bit of a close call right there. But all these guys with that first caution likely coming in to top off on fuel. Tires would have been a bit more of a question mark. Obviously, not the biggest deal in terms of tire wear here. Not like what we see at a lot of other race tracks, but that's one of the things that makes it a little bit unique. You hear a lot of people refer to it as kind of a hybrid super speedway in the sense that it races, again, very similar to a Daytona or a Talladega. One of the differences, tire wear can still come into play, especially over the course of a long run. So these guys wide open, no issues with handling early on. But if we get a long green flag run, it is something to keep in mind when they make either a green flag pit stop or if we get another caution and they make a pit stop then. Also interesting, a lot of guys topped off here under this caution. You notice how many drivers are single file on the inside, as that is the penalty for topping off before you get back to green flag racing. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this restart out. We saw a lot of aggression early to start the race. Then they kind of got single file for a little bit, and then back to 2x2, which is where that first caution of the night broke out. And all the trucks involved in that one are back on the racetrack. but towards the back with some work to do. That includes Ledger, Young, and then you go up a few more spots here to some of the guys that were involved, but were able to get a better end of it. Zachary Crabtree didn't actually get any damage. And then for Charles Whitehead, not involved in that last incident, but contact earlier in the race with the wall as he finds himself still trapped 2 laps down. Well, it's going to be 19 of 80 laps complete. That's going to still put us at 62 to go. Can't make it on fuel yet, but certainly still all about positioning yourself for late in this race. Here we go. Brock Whitehead going to lead the field. Back into the restart zone. Green flag back in the air at Atlanta. Big jump on the outside line. The 55 of James Harris got about as big of a run as you can. Now they're going to go 4 wide. Some contact. William Mann Jr. and Brian High were ping-ponging off of each other for just a moment. And these guys are elbows out, trying to look for just a little bit of room. Now you see the inside going to roll. Brian High got a big push to the back bumper of Crabtree. And further back, the scramble still on. William Mann Jr., he's gotten to the outside here looking for a push. I believe that's the 34, Jason Nethery, but the outside very disconnected here. Off of turn 4, this is not going to help these guys very much in their charge to the front. The biggest winner out of this restart so far, the 55 of James Harris. Not sure if he went off strategy with everybody else in terms of tires or what the deal was. Now that he starts to get closer to the lead, trouble. We got 2 of them spinning out back. Is this going to be a caution or can they save it? No, not going to save it. Big hit to the outside fence. Jason Nethery goes head on. And now the caution will fly as the 34 will add to the list of trucks involved in trouble here in the early goings at Atlanta, as he'll spin this thing back around and get back going. You see the damage, though, to the right front of his Chevy. And so he will certainly have to go in for some repairs. It looked like the field got loose out back. Not sure if it was a result of contact or something else. Either way, though, for the 34 of Nethery, it looked like he was starting to make some ground up early on that run. I know we were only about a lap or 2 in here, but he's going to have to reset and try it all over again. Let's go back and look at what started this. It broke out over in turn number 1 and 2, and you see as they go into the corner right here, 97 starts to go up, and Brian High by that point was already loose. It almost makes you wonder, was there contact or something else? Certainly doesn't look like there was any contact here. Janzak is running probably a few feet off of him, but you see as they go down to the corner here, Brian High gets a little high, and now he's trying to chase that truck, catch up to the handling, and just gets right up into the door. Nethery, they both try to save it, but then on the transition, back up to the racetrack for Nethery, just gets loose, and man, that overcorrect, unforgiving shot for the 34 Nethery. Big impact, again, to the right front of that truck. Everybody else got away clean. And I want to watch this from the onboard view of Brian High. We talk a lot of times, too, I keep saying super speedways, but these super speedway style racetracks where you really got to set the truck or car as you enter into the corner. And for High here, just a little bit late on that, his truck's trying to load up into the banking, just gets a little offset. And, honestly, he may have just felt like it was looser than it really was. I mean, we saw from the TV view, it looked like that truck was pretty straight going into the corner. But sometimes here at Atlanta, you start to hear the tires, you think you're starting to slide. And really, he makes the situation worse when he overcorrects the first time. Watch the wheel. It looks okay, but then a big overcorrection right there. That's what sends him up into the door. And then as he saves it, unfortunately, Nethery's not going to be able to do the same. You're going to see the contact there to the outside wall as the 34 goes backwards. And the rest is history. Let's watch it from the onboard view here for Jason Nethery. He's going to see this. That was on the last incident, rather. We'll take you back here to the most recent one. Back this up one more time. And watch as they get into the corner. There's the initial contact. They both save it, but then right here, Nethery just not quite able to hang on as he snaps it back to the right. That is where all the damage was done. So we'll go back live now. It's going to be our second restart of the night here from EchoPark Speedway. The man that leads the way at the moment, the 61 of Brock Whitehead. Felt like he has a pretty good shot here tonight. Obviously, one of the favorites at any super speedways. Mentioned that we saw him in the PGR 500. Had a good run there. And he's looking to see if he can add to it here tonight at Atlanta. Brad Thacker just behind him, and then it's James Harris and Tyler Meeks that will line up here all inside the top 5. Zachary Crabtree as well. Not sure if this was on a little bit of strategy play or was able to make up some quick track position over that last run. He has now also got himself back inside of the top 5. So it'll be 24 of 80 laps complete when we get back to green flag racing, and so still going to be right around that 55, 56-ish laps to go marker. So these guys still cannot make it on fuel, even at 100%. 70% though, as, oh, watch out, checkup. Uh-oh, got some trouble here. Freight train on the bottom. As a couple of these guys probably just got a 4X. I'm not sure what that stack up resulted from, but the point I was getting ready to make is looking at fuel mileage for these guys at a track like Atlanta on full fuel, I would think they could make it pretty close to probably 40, no, maybe a little bit further than that, maybe 45 to 50 laps on 100% tank. But with 70% fuel, it's going to be interesting. As you see, we're going to extend the caution now one more lap, maybe for the issue that just took place over in turn number 1. But it will be very interesting to see if any groups try to pit early or if the entire field comes at the same time late. Definitely still some strategy that could come into play for the rest of this one. But we do want to make a big announcement for all the folks watching at home, race fans, drivers, anybody that enjoys watching the action here on PGR eSports. PGR has officially gotten the go-ahead. We will be covering in all aspects ERA for the next season, and ERA is, of course, the big esports racing association, which is owned by Jesse Owuji and a few others. They've put on big events before. You think back to the Omega Cup Spring Bowl, the Fall Bowl, the Winter Bowl, where drivers compete for $4,000 prizes for simply being signed up with an ERA membership. So we'll be taking over that for this season. We'll have all the broadcasts right here on PGR eSports with admins controlling the event as well. We'll have all the info for where you can get signed up for those events as well. And speaking of get signed up, if you're interested in getting involved here with these guys at the Grindstone Developments Truck Series, you can find a link to the Discord in the description of this video. Brock Whitehead going to lead us back to green on the high side here. He's picked up 4 spots from where he started this race at. Brad Thacker, James Harris also on the move. Tyler Meeks has gone in the wrong direction, only by a couple of spots since the start of this race. William Mann Jr. and Chris Logan, 2 more of the trucks inside the top 10 that are 5+ position from where they started this race at. And now that we have had 2 cautions, it starts to make you wonder how the drivers are feeling. We talk about pit strategy, but you really got to kind of race it out for about 5-10 laps usually to kind of get comfortable and maybe start to find some organization with the pack. These guys have not really been able to do that. The start of the race was the longest green flag run we've had so far. And then we saw early trouble on the first restart of the night between Jason Ethery and Brian High. We're going to try it again, though, now. Field back to 2x2 formation here as they work off of turn number 4. The pace car is going to make the left turn. It'll be Brad Thacker that gets control this time. Can he get a good launch? Yes, no, I take that back. It was actually the 61 of Whitehead who had control. He got the big launch. Thacker had to check up a little bit. And that's really separated the pack early for Brock Whitehead. It was a great restart, but maybe a little bit too good. You got to be careful right here if you are the 61. You don't want to get too far out in front. These guys can chase you down in a hurry. The 55 of James Harris, though, took advantage of the sleeping inside start as he was able to roll clear, jump to second. And it is now a group of 4 that's going to start to pull away. Thacker goes to the outside. Meeks is going to shoot by on the bottom. 2x2 as you get to 5th on back. Meeks was looking for another push right there to the back bumper of Harris. I think that was a good decision to bail out. Had a similar look to that first caution we saw tonight. Is speaking of caution, we're going to get another one right here. 2 more trucks go for a slide. This time it's Crabtree along with the 97 of Craig Janczak, your championship leader, or rather the man who is currently chasing your championship leader. And so he will get that truck back rolling. I do see some damage to the right front. Makes you wonder if he had a run-in with the outside wall coming out of the quad oval. And for Zachary Crabtree right here, he's going to get that truck back rolling. I don't see a ton of damage on his F-150. Similar scenario to Craig Janczak. The question is going to be what got these 2 out of shape to bring out our 3rd caution of the night. Let's go back and look at it here. This is going to bring us close now to a restart with over 30 laps in the books. And it almost looks like here the 54 Crabtree may have came down. But we got loose. Some sort. Crabtree definitely was getting very, very loose right here. Watch it again. Is it a push that gets him out of shape? No, he just goes up and, man, I'll tell you what, it's almost exactly what we saw with Charles Whitehead. Goes to kind of, I mean, he makes the move to the high side, but as soon as he goes to turn the wheel left as they're going up through the quad oval, The back end just starts to get a little bit loose, chases it down the track, and for Craig Janczak, just an innocent victim right there. Nowhere he could go, nothing he could do. But that's what led to the contact that sent them both spinning through the grass. Let's go back and get another look at this here. And watch what I'm talking about. The 54, you're going to see, makes this move to the high side, trying to go up top. But then as soon as he starts to put some wheel into it, the back end just starts to slide out. He chases it down the racetrack, but in the process collects Janczak, and man, look at the back end of that truck start to get light. Talk about the speeds, well over 175 miles an hour here at Atlanta. But then for Craig Janczak, it looked like the initial contact was where he got most of that damage before he ultimately slides to a stop. And so he'll have to go in and get some repairs. We'll watch this from the onboard view here, as this is going to be for Zachary Crabtree. We'll watch, you'll see the truck shoot up. Right there he makes the move, and then just maybe a little too aggressive with the wheel. Either way, he gets loose, and then it's on from there. Goes for a spin. Lucky that these two didn't come back up in any traffic. So your third caution of the night is a two-truck incident. We'll turn our attention back live once again. 28 of 80 laps in the books here. The EchoPark 120 from New Atlanta Motor Speedway. And it is still going to be Brock Whitehead with the lead. Got a great jump on that last restart, and it did pan out pretty well for him. James Harris is going to line up to his outside. Tyler Meeks back in third. Brad Thacker fourth. Brian High rounds out the top five. You've got John Ledger back in sixth. Jason Ethery seventh. William Mann Jr. eighth with Charles Whitehead. We got to give a tip of the hat here to Whitehead for just a moment. For Charles, we talked about him falling multiple laps down as, oh, trouble. 51's going to slide under caution. And no harm, no foul as he'll save it. And that was a very interesting look right there for the driver out of Crowley, Texas. I was just getting ready to give him a attaboy, if you will, for the fact that he was 2 laps down, stayed in the fight with a couple of cautions, got both laps back, and that just sounds like a downshift right there gone wrong. Lucky he didn't just take out Crabtree, as he will get back rolling here, and it looks like he is still going to make his way down to the pits. George Young back in 12th, and Craig Janczak currently the last man in the field, as he sits in 13th. So lights go off on the pace car. That means we will be getting back to green flag racing this time. And even for drivers that are not in it for the championship, this is still a big race for a few different reasons. I would say most notably, the last potential race for a lot of these guys that maybe not great on the more technical tracks to try to get a win this season, because next week, second to last race of the season, we go to Martinsville. I mean, we talk about chaos on these big tracks. There's going to be plenty of that there. The half-mile paperclip. These guys always seem to struggle there, and we always seem to see a lot of hurt feelings as well. And then it's off to Phoenix Raceway for the championship race. But of course, with it being kind of a cumulative points effort throughout the season, it's not going to come down to any special Final Four or anything of that nature. It will just be the final race of the season. Once again, if you're just tuning in, we want to welcome you to the Grindstone Developments Truck Series, live here from EchoPark Speedway. As the EchoPark 120 rolls on, it'll be 30 laps, 45 miles complete. When they cross the line this time, we are still 10 laps from the halfway point, and a pit stop is still in play. It'll be, again, 51 laps to go. I still don't think these guys can stretch it that long. This time, though, it'll be James Harris on the inside. Can he get a better restart? Or can Whitehead catch them all sleeping once again? Time to find out. Back into the restart zone. Whitehead weighs Brad Thacker. They get a big jump, and it's going to be the outside once again. And it's able to clear not just one, but almost two as they go down into turn number one. Harris, though, fighting back on the inside. Him and Meeks were able to get linked up pretty well. And that's a Ford and a Chevy, but working together here down the backstretch. And I was going to say, if you're the 61 Whitehead, he knows he's got to cover down to the inside. He'll do just that. Everybody else on back will continue to play chase here. Brian High on the outside line. Still 2x2 is Jason Ethery. Thought about making a move. He'll think better of it. The back of the pack starting to trail off just a little bit. And it looks like the 97 of Janczak does still have that right front damage. So he has chosen to not use the fast repair just yet. We'll keep you updated on that storyline. Single file for about the front five, and then that outside line. Try to get going once again. You really got to get at least 2, maybe 3 trucks working together. But man, Brad Thacker has been the one guy all night. It doesn't matter how close to the front he has gotten. He is not scared to look for a little bit more. Nobody going to go yet. Now the 97 of Janczak jumps up. Crisscrosses now. Thacker's going to get into the outside wall. Brian High's got a duck low to miss him. That's going to put him 3 wide. The 13's got to check up. And it is still calamity here, even under our third restart of the night. Got to be careful, though. 2x2 towards the back here. Cannot afford to lose touch with this lead pack. I think Thacker's going to be okay, but as you go further back just behind him, the 51 of Whitehead, the 13 of High, as these guys run 2 wide, they really start to stall the momentum out. It doesn't take much. If you fall outside of a second and a half, you will lose the draft here. They're already over about 1.2 seconds. They still haven't been able to figure it out just yet. Towards the front, William and Jr. He is now going to look for a move. The 29 goes to the high side. Craig Janzak not going to be able to follow just yet. And for Janzak, it's maybe a different approach now. I'm curious to see how he runs it, but a lot of times, as a driver, if you get some sort of damage and choose not to use your fast repair, the mentality is be super aggressive. Fight for what you can get. That way, if something doesn't work out, you still have that fast repair to rely back on, and at least you can say you are out there for a reason. With that damage trouble, Meeks gonna save it. Oh my goodness. How did Tyler Meeks hold on to that race truck? Went down on the apron, was able to catch it. He'll blend back up the rest of the field. But for Tyler Meeks, that was close to being our 4th caution of the night. Go back and look at this here. Not sure if this was, again, another situation of a push gone wrong or something a little different. As they go into turn 1, you see the 7 of Meeks here. 3rd in line. And no, just has 2 tires on the apron. Starts to get that truck a little bit loose. Chases it down and does a good job of not getting too jumpy with the wheel. To, again, keep that situation from getting worse than it already was. That does drop the 7 of Meeks back to that second group, which is about 2 seconds behind the last truck in the lead pack. And that is, of course, Brad Thacker. But they stay 2x2. Those guys could certainly catch up front. It is still Brock Whitehead leading the way. James Harris second. John Ledger to his outside in 3rd. And then William and Jr., Craig Janzak rounding out the top 5. The lead pack, though, one of the smaller ones that we have seen so far tonight, only goes about 7 cars deep. Before Tyler Meeks leads another group of 5 trucks that are once again trying to run these guys down. And you can see the time delta there on the left side of your screen, but they've got to get to about a second and a half of the leader. And I'm watching this closely here. It's down to about 1.8 seconds, so they're getting really close, but they've got to stay organized and lined up long enough to get within range. They need about another 3 to 4 tenths. Not able to find it, at least not just yet. 37 of 80 laps in the books. Brock Whitehead still leading the way here at New Atlanta. And for Brock, we asked him last week in the post-race interview after his podium finish, you know, you've been so good and so close so many times. Do you feel like you can get a win before the season's all said and done? And he said he thinks so. Obviously, the big part here is you got to have a little bit of luck, especially at these super speedways. And he's had that luck on his side so far here tonight, missing some of the incidents we've had. And he's been able to do the rest of the work with keeping his Chevy out front. The outside going to try to get going once again. And guess who? It's the duo of Brad Thacker and William Mann Jr., 2 of the veterans to the Grindstone Developments Truck Series, trying to make something happen here. And for Brad Thacker, so he's got the Buc-ee's picture. I'll tell you what here, if you're Brad Thacker, obviously trying to be very aggressive, but I got to think he's maybe a little bit nervous with what he's felt from that truck so far here tonight. Obviously, hit the fence about 5-10 laps ago early in this green flag run, and it's very easy to get nervous as a driver with little things even like that. And so for William Mann Jr. here, if he wants to go to the front, he knows he needs a push. The question is going to be, is Brad Thacker willing to take that risk right now? Or does he wait until we get a little bit closer to the end of this thing? And looking out back from Brock Whitehead's POV at the 55 of James Harris. And for the 55, he's got to be feeling pretty good right now. You notice that Brock Whitehead right there, running about a half a lane up, maybe trying to let the 55 breathe just a little bit. Keep the engine temps cool under that race truck, and that'll help everybody in the process. And as they come out of turn 4 this time, it's going to be just 40 laps to go. So we have crossed the halfway point officially at Atlanta, but we still have a pit stop to talk about. We are going to go ahead and take our first break tonight. We'll go side by side so you don't miss a thing. Stick with us. It's Brock Whitehead leads at Atlanta.
I played a couple of simulators, and this was like very responsive, especially the hydraulics and stuff, the motion and stuff was really, really on point.
But you feel like you're really driving, it feels real.
It adds so much to the experience. It's just really, really cool.
It was pretty awesome.
Green flag is in the air. We are racing.
Three by three.
Almost no trouble. Around goes Alex Hill. On into the outside wall goes Hill. They're wrecking big time out back. We're not going to throw a caution. Finish. Who gets it in the line? Cody Nagels wins it in Talladega.
Welcome back to the Grindstone Developments Truck Series. Before we get back to full screen, did want to again show you the schedule, or what's left of the schedule rather, for these guys. The one change that you notice on this schedule that will not hold true, instead of going to Long Beach next week, we are going to be headed to Martinsville, so keep that in mind. And then Phoenix will round out the season. All right, let's get back down trackside because these guys have been going at it. You saw all the action while we were on it nonstop during break, and it is now the 56 of Brad Thacker who has shuffled his way to the front as we get closer to that lap 50 mark. So it is worth noting, everybody getting really close, if not already, to being inside of that fuel window. The question, of course, would be, do you try to run it long, or do you run it a little bit short? 56 of Thacker goes back to the inside. That'll put him 3 wide. Now some contact. William Mann Jr. got into the 34. He shoots into the wall, as does the 13 of Brian High. But you do got to give a tip of the hat. The reason this group is so much bigger all of a sudden was because that second pack was able to chase them back down. Man, we saw almost another close call right there. These guys are squirrely. I'm not sure if the handling's going away or something else. We talked about the track temp earlier. You see the weather. Track temp has only jumped up 2 degrees since the start of this race, so at least in theory, should not be a big issue. And you see the 55 of Harris. He's got a little bit of damage to the right tail light. And for his truck, he'll stay in line for the moment. William Mann Jr., though, going to jump back to the outside. And, oh, man, oh, my goodness, William Mann Jr. Whew, there's a hold your breath moment right there. See if we can back this up. The 29, it looked like he started to get a little bit out of shape right here. And maybe it was just the way it looked with the sun. Look at the onboard view. Either way, these guys have been really, really tight, bumper-to-bumper racing. And he did. You see that little bit of a wheel correction. Not as bad on the cockpit view as what it looked like live. But the more they continue to dice it up, the higher the risk is going to be that we do have a caution here at some point. And that would obviously bring everybody down pit road for fuel, maybe 4 tires as well, and set us up for a run to the finish. Thacker's still out in front, and we talk about tires mattering late in the run here at Atlanta, and you're starting to see that. A little bit easier, I would say, to control the lead at this point, with the guys out back starting to see that tire wear affect the way that these trucks run in dirty air. And so for the 56, the Thacker continues to run the inside, and at least for now, it was the dominant lane. But here comes the 7 of Meeks. He's got to run on the outside. Brock Whitehead, and it looks like Jason Nethery up there trying to help as well. Towards the back of this lead group, a little bit of single file action. That's back towards John Ledger, Brian High. The 70 of Chris Logan is caught up with these guys, and then the 48 of George Young all the trucks that are with the lead pack. So the only two by themselves, Charles Whitehead, who currently sits about 6.5 seconds back from the leaders, and then Zachary Crabtree, who is currently about a half a track behind the leaders. And you saw the speed right there for Crabtree, about mid-160s by yourself. Look at the difference here when you're in a draft. Getting close to mid-170s, so you run a lot faster when you've got help around you. That is why we say that the draft is so important for these trucks, especially here at a track like Atlanta Motor Speedway. Highside's got another big run here. The 7 Amix has gotten clear a couple of times, but he has yet to go down to the inside. A little bit of an interesting look there for the 7 Amix. It makes you wonder if maybe just feels like the truck's handling a little bit better up top, or if he doesn't want to go to the bottom yet because he likes his help, but Whitehead's going to follow him through. The 7 jumps down, and just like that, the 56 of Brad Thacker, who was leading a couple laps to go, gets shuffled back to the 3rd position. Nethery and William Mann Jr. on the outside, still trying to make it work, but again, you've really got to get tandemed up to make some progress. And, oh man, watch out, Craig Janczak trying to get to the inside right there. Brad Thacker, he's finally going to be able to do it. Thacker trying to squeeze him. Man, Craig Janczak has got to be really, really nervous right now watching that 56 in front of him. As we continue to talk about handling becoming a little bit more of an issue. We're going to hop on board once again here. Craig Janczak carrying a real-life onboard view for us as well. And watch the hands, but also watch the eyes here for Craig Janczak, laser-focused on trying to follow that truck in front. Now, he notices that they continue to wash up. 97 able to stay very disciplined to that double orange line. It makes you think that the handling of his truck is feeling pretty good. But he does still have just a little bit of that right front damage that could be playing a little bit of a role in how this truck will continue to drive. So Brad Thacker single files right back out in front. He may take a look to the outside here if he gets the opportunity. And I'm sure for Craig Janczak, if he gets one as well, he's going to jump back to the inside. 3 trucks now lined up top. It's still Nethery and William Mann Jr. And at least momentarily there, they picked up some aid from 13 of Brian High. Whitehead looking to either challenge for the lead as caution. We've got trouble. Big hits here going into turn number 1. The 48 of George Young's involved. William Mann Jr., you see that right front fender flapping around. But it looked like it was George Young who got the worst here, as he has got major damage to the front nose of his F-150. The engine may be expired on it as well. And I don't know if that's going to be a night ender for George Young, but he's definitely going to have to take this to the pits. He's trying to let it roll, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get his Ford refired here to limp it back to the pits. 4th caution of the night. Let's go back and take a look at how this one gets sparked up. Saw William Mann Jr. as he goes up the racetrack. Does he just clip Nethery right here? It looks like, yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. He slides across the bumper, and Nethery gets him loose. Then as he gets towards the right side, just hooks him into the fence. That's a big, big hit for Jason Nethery. That may have been the car that really got the engine expired. But then, oh man, George Young, it looked like he was through it. And this is going to be an even bigger impact. And that would explain all the damage he received. Brian High and everybody else just about was able to slip through. That is a tough one overall. Let's go back and look at this one more time. A couple more times, rather, here. We'll go first to the cockpit view here for William Mann Jr. And you see, watch where he swipes across the back bumper of the 34. He's trying to line him up for a push, but just doesn't quite hit it right. And then once he gets offset, it doesn't take much to get these trucks hooked together. And then there's the big hit for these two, with George Young once again getting the worst of that one. Jason Nethery, kind of an innocent victim here, if you will. Nothing he was actually doing wrong. Just unfortunate timing here for the 34s. You're going to see him get turned, and it's about one of the worst places it can happen at. You see, again, all 4 tires off the ground for that truck, and he's going to make a second hit here, kind of in the kink of the quad oval, before it's all said and done for him. And then as this truck spins back around, he sees just about the rest of the carnage here that happens out in front of him. And for the 48 of George Young, there's just nothing he can do right here. He's not expecting to get clipped. He thinks he's made it through it. It certainly looked like he did. Then you're going to see here, kind of right at the last second, just gets hooked, and that's a big, big impact once again for those 3 trucks. So now we're starting to get to that point. Well, number one, we're going to be good to go on fuel, but also we've seen a lot of drivers caught up in some sort of carnage so far here tonight. Much more We may start to see some trucks have to retire from this race. We talked about that one faster pair that you get at the top of the race, but I got to assume by now that a lot of drivers have potentially used that. So it's going to be 21 laps to go, it looks like, once we get the green flag back in the air. Lights on the pace car are off for the moment, or excuse me, are still on for the moment, but I would assume that they would go off this time. So as it stands right now, it is going to be, looks like John Ledger who would lead us back to green unless anybody decides to go in and top off on fuel right here, but it does not look like that will be the case. So everybody feeling pretty confident on the strategy, which we talked about fuel mileage. They can go at least 30, so wouldn't make a ton of logic here to necessarily go into top off. Obviously, you make sure you took enough for those 2 green light checkers if we were to need them. And the only pit stop that you're making as a driver from this point on is for one of 2 reasons. Either you've got damage from a wreck, or maybe, just maybe, if you think tires have been enough of an advantage and you've got a set left in the pits, you would go in and take those, but I think that is probably pretty unlikely by this point in the race. So what that means for all of these guys up front is that it is now all about track position. James Harris has been very fast so far here tonight. Brock Whitehead has been one of the phenomenal pushers. John Ledger, obviously qualified on pole, finds himself back in the saddle right now. 21 laps is still a lot of time for stuff to go wrong here at Atlanta. We've seen a lot of wrecks. And kind of your call on whether or not you think any of those were considered the big one. I think it's still a possibility, as we've got all but 2 trucks still running in this race. So for the 19 of Ledger here, getting one final check of the tires. And if you're just tuning in, we want to once again welcome you here to the Grindstone Developments Truck Series live on PGR eSports. 2 races left to go in the season for these guys. And both drivers on the front row right now are looking for their first win of the season. All right, here we go. Pace car makes the left turn. Can the inside get the jump? We've seen the leader on the outside getting a big advantage on these last couple of restarts. This time, though, Ledger's actually going to wait for the green. Gets a pretty even jump. William Mann Jr. quick to jump to the high side. Nobody's going to get any tire spin, though. And so as they all work down into turn number 1, 2 wide, but clean and green so far. The 55 of Harris taking advantage of what is a lot more doable on the first lap than once you get up to full pace, and that is pushing through the corners. Down the back stretch, these guys now back up over 165. And as they work into turn number 3, that push was crucial for James Harris. The problem, though, is the 19 chose to stay down. And man, Harris is getting really dicey. You saw the back bumper of the 19 of Ledger starting to get a little bit out of shape. Harris was all over him, but everybody else behind content to stay 2 by 2, at least for the moment. The 70 of Chris Logan rounding out the back of this lead group right now. A couple other drivers by themselves, Crabtree and Charles Whitehead, 2 of those. And then Jason Ethery did make his way back out on the racetrack, but is currently being scored a lap down. And then George Young is out of this race. So the 34 is going to need a caution, and with the way they're starting to race up here, it is definitely in the cards. The 55 of Harris starting to think about if he wanted to make a move right there, but man, further back you go, you can see a lot of these guys are getting really, really squirrely here, trying to find a lane that they can work with, trying to make a move that they think is going to work out. And if you're James Harris, you can only push so long before you feel like you got to try to make a move to win it yourself. A big thing we got to keep an eye on here. The 61 of Brock Whitehead on the outside, keeping his lane even by doing a lot of side drafting. But he's really going to need a push here from William Mann Jr., but the 29 instead almost looked to go 3 wide. Now the 19 almost gets turned. John Ledger trying to save it. Is he going to go back onto the racetrack? No. And that is another unbelievable save for one of the Chevys here tonight. This time it's John Ledger. We talked about him being well up inside the top 5 in point standings. And it's for consistency. Part of that consistency is being able to make saves like this. That truck was initially headed for a left turn into the inside wall. Then he was going to go back up onto the racetrack. Somehow he manages to avoid both scenarios. The unfortunate part, though, is for Ledger. He is going to lose the pack and will now join that short list of drivers that needs a caution here before this thing is all said and done. William Mann Jr. now leads the way, and he's trying to make sure he keeps control of these lanes. Back down to the inside, shorter way around the racetrack through the turns. And we try to go up top to cover all the momentum as we go down the straightaways. That was another interesting look right there. I thought for a minute Meeks was maybe taking a dive to the outside to go 3 wide, but he chooses not to. So he will stay in line as it runs for the moment. Craig Janczak back here kind of trapped as well. It's such a tough choice for these drivers, especially tonight. I mean, if you want to go 3 wide with as much fishtailing as we've seen, I couldn't tell you whether you want to go middle or high side. You have the chance of getting doored just about either way. I think you got to make the opportunity happen, though, through the middle if somebody leaves it open. Otherwise, there is a 3rd lane at Atlanta, even though it may be on the narrower side. So the 29 of William Mann Jr. will lead us across the lap once again. 15 laps to go. And for James Harris here, a lot of speed in that truck. Man, there was some contact right there between him and Brock Whitehead. As they got together, it looks like Whitehead is maybe washing up the track just a little bit. As these guys are trying to keep their trucks as straight as possible. And now the 55 of Harris is going to try to side draft once again off the turn 4. Whitehead found a little bit of a gap here that he was able to close up, and that allowed him to really push the 29 of William Mann Jr. down the straightaway. More contact between the front 2, now making another bump. That's going to send Harris up the racetrack. Can Thacker check up to miss him? He does for the moment, but they are still all over the place. It's like a ticking time bomb. Now, I think the timer is getting ready to run out here in just a couple of laps. William Mann Jr. went to the top down the straightaway, back down to the inside, and Brock Whitehead is giving him about all he can handle through the corners. Now William Mann Jr. is going to get split out 3 wide as they go through the tri-oval. And 29 is going to get a break right here by the 61 of Whitehead, who was able to check up just enough to let the 29 slot back down in line. 2 Chevys lead the way, goes down below the apron once again. Man, I think if I was one of these guys in the pack right now, I may do what Chris Logan's doing, bailing out because it is getting really dicey. The 13 of Brian High now finds himself 3 wide for a moment. And finally, after 5+ laps of trying, the 55 of James Harris is going to go to the lead with 12 laps to go at Atlanta. I think for James Harris, this was a really big move. He was one of the drivers that I would bet was getting really nervous right there, watching the 29 getting all sorts of loose and out of shape over those last couple of laps leading the way. But it's really interesting here at Atlanta because, most tracks, obviously, you handle a little bit different out in front versus dirty air. But it's a much different feel here. When you're in the draft, you're more so fighting the truck getting a little bit tight. You can wiggle a little bit with looseness, but it's not that bad. And then when you go to the lead here at Atlanta, all of a sudden you've got a lot more clean air on the nose. That increases the downforces. Now we may have another incident here further back. It was Brian High and Craig Janczak. Looks like Janczak was able to save it. But one of them got into the wall right there, and I think that was indeed Chris Logan. No, it was somebody else. I'm trying to figure out who it was. Either way, everybody saves it. We will continue on 2 by 2 towards the front of the pack here. But it is now only 5 trucks in the lead draft, at least for the moment. But Janczak and Logan still within drafting range, so I think those 2 will still be able to catch back up. When we cross the line next time, it's going to be single digits. It'll be just 9 laps to go, and similar to what we saw last week at Daytona, you can really tell that the desperation and anticipation is starting to pick up. These guys showing some of the most aggression that they have had all night. James Harris, we talk about him being so good at really any track we head to, but especially these super speedways. And now, though, he's going to have to go to work because the 56 of Thacker was able to get up top, had a big run, pushed clear. And that puts Brad Thacker back in the catbird seat here with 8.5 laps to go. William Mann Jr. back to the high side. Brock Whitehead's going to split him 3 wide as they go into turn 3. And for William Mann Jr., this is going to shuffle him a couple spots towards generally the back of the pack, as the 56 of Brad Thacker, though, continues to lead the way. Just 8 laps remaining here at Atlanta. James Harris in the Best Buy Chevy. You've got the Gainbridge Chevy as well, the 61 of Brock Whitehead on the outside. And for these 2, we talk about obviously looking for their first win of the season, both James Harris and Brock Whitehead, that is. But the 56 of Brad Thacker looking for his first win in 2 seasons. Talk about a big momentum changer. That could be a huge deal for the 56 of Brad Thacker. if he was able to go home a winner here tonight. The 97 to Craig Janzak, talking about it's going to be a big points night for him either way on trying to, of course, get past his teammate. That was Bryce Rayner in the championship standings. Bryce not here tonight, so Janzak the only Team Conti Sim Performance and Digital Sim Sport truck in the field. And now the 55 at Thacker. Going to do a little bit more trying to maintain this lead. We saw him controlling the lines earlier. And at some point, you got to start to think about blocking just a little bit here. 6 laps to go, and there was a lap truck out in the distance. Can't tell if that's the 48 of George Young or who that is. Because that's not Charles Whitehead. It's not John Ledger either. It's actually the 34 of Jason Nethery, who is currently a lap down. This will put him 2 down. So if these guys don't wreck before they get there, that will just about wrap up the hopes for the 34 Nethery. But now they're going to go 3 wide once again. Tight fit on the inside for the 55 of Harris, but he makes it work. And they go back to 2x2 once they get around the 34 of Nethery. William Mann Jr. has slotted his way right back up into the second spot, but he gets the 61 loose. That's going to open the door now for the 55 of Harris. He goes by on the inside. Here comes Tyler Meeks, and Craig Janzak as the inside has proven to be dominant now. And it will be 4 laps to go next time. By the way, keep in mind, white flag makes this race official. We got to get to there, though, for that to happen. Any caution from this point until then would send us into our first attempt at a green-white checker. It's going to be now just 4 laps to go, 6 miles remaining here at Atlanta. And I think just about however it plays out, the chance that we see a new winner continues to increase. Tyler Meeks got loose going through 1 and 2, had to chase that truck up the track. That allowed William Mann Jr. to go by, and Chris Logan in the 70 continues to just camp out, trying to play the patience game. So I think he sees the same vision that we're starting to see more and more of up here. A caution is not out of the question just yet. A lot of trucks in this lead pack. Still looking very, very loose. Track temp not that hot, but we've been on these tires now for so long. We're really starting to see that wear come into play here for the 61 of Brock Whitehead. He's got to start thinking about what is he going to do when the 55 makes his move, especially if they stay single file like this. Do you try to block, or do you feel like you're safe enough on the inside to just run it all the way back around? Now remember, you cannot go below that double red line here at Atlanta. So as they come onto the front stretch, there's a lot of room below the apron. Very tempting as a driver, but if you do go down there to advanced position, it will cost you a penalty. So knowing you can't do that, I think if you're the rest of this group here and you're trying to win this race, you have got to go sooner rather than later. Just a lap and a half to go now. It's worked down the backstretch. Brock Whitehead still well in control. The top 3 are trying to scoot away. Janzak's going to create just a little bit of separation between him and the 55 of Harris, trying to gear up for one more run. All chips on the table now, though. White flag, 1 lap to go at Atlanta. As they work into turn 1, there's not going to be any move yet. James Harris trying to get the 61 a little bit out of shape. William Mann Jr. trying to make another charge up top. He's got a push from the 7 of Meeks. Now there's a little bit of contact. The 61 of Brock Whitehead goes to the high side. Harris is going to shoot through the bottom. Janzak's got a push 2 wide into turn 3 for the final time. Off of turn 4, the inside's got the momentum. Nobody's going to make the run back. James Harris, part-time start, will get his first win of the season at Atlanta. And he does it in yet another chaotic last lap finish. Not quite as close as what we saw at Daytona, but they all wrecked coming to the line, and that is going to be interesting to see how that shuffles out the rest of the top 5. William Mann Jr., though, with a phenomenal run, brings it home in second, and Brad Thacker will round out the podium. Well, for James Harris, he's only made a few starts this season. Still thought, though, he'd be a favorite for some of those starts. He was here tonight. And the new paint scheme must have brought some good luck. He gets the job done. And while he won't be fighting for a championship, he will continue the streak of winning seasons for the number 55. As he continues to celebrate here on the front stretch, burning it down in front of the virtual grandstands, we are going to go ahead and take a look at your finishing results. Again, unofficial. And we'll go back and get a replay as these guys were coming to the checkered flag. But it is James Harris who is scored as your race winner here tonight. William Mann Jr. takes home second. Brad Thacker finishing in that final podium spot with Chris Logan. Good run for him in 4th. Tyler Meeks, we saw him pushing towards the front at the end, finishes in 5th. And then Craig Janczak, who was 3rd, going down the backstretch on the last lap, finishes in 6th. Brock Whitehead back in 7th. He was actually leading as they were going down the backstretch on that final lap, but got caught up in that incident off of turn number 4. Brian High finishes in 8th. John Ledger, who qualified on the pole here tonight, will take 9th. And Zachary Crabtree, the last man inside of the top 10. Charles Whitehead finishes in 11th. That's going to be Jason Ethery 12th. And the last truck in the field here tonight was George Young, who finishes in 13th. Well, as Harris continues to celebrate, we have, of course, got to go back and get a look at this last, I don't necessarily want to say last lap, because most of the chaos was actually here as they were going into turn 3 and then off of turn 4. And you watch from the blimp cam here, Harris has got the run, and as soon as Janczak washes up even just a little bit, it just kills the run on all 3 of these lines. These guys start to side draft, stall each other out, and then it looked like a little bit of contact right there between Thacker and the 61 of Whitehead. As you see, Thacker right here was trying to push Janczak. Gets a little bit off center. And as the 56 gets up the track, the rest was history. Didn't mean to speed it up right here, but watch again. Gets into Janczak, and as he goes up the track here, man, that was a huge hit for Tyler Meeks. Surprised that he was able to still slide across the line where he did. And oh my goodness. Well, his teammate was the one who we saw flipping coming to the line at Daytona last week. And this week it's Craig Janczak who's doing cartwheels in the number 97 machine. Watch this impact. Hits the wall upside down. Does almost a backflip and slides across the line on his side. So 2 weeks super speedway drama on the last lap and 2 chaotic finishes to go along with it. Well, before we wrap things up here tonight, we want to get a talk to all of your top 3, but we're going to go ahead and kick things off first with none other than your race winner. That's the 55 of James Harris. James, this is Austin in the booth. You got a copy? And give me just a moment here, James. I got to make sure I get the audio set up properly, so we'll get him set up in just a moment. And by the way, we talked about the chaos we saw here tonight. Again, with next week being Martinsville, we're going to see a very similar amount of chaos, to say the least. And a lot of the guys that, you know, had a good opportunity here this week, we could see some of them being favorites once again next week. But I think overall, you got to think about the fact that this was the last shot for a wild card winner. All right, with that, I think we got things sorted out, so we'll try this once again. James, this is Austin up at the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, you got me.
All right, there we go. Well, you get the job done here tonight, man. First win of the season and a part-time start. So I got to ask you, first of all, how does it feel to return to victory lane?
Man, it felt good. I didn't think I was going to get it there for a while. Them tires didn't like being on the track more than 15 laps, but man, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, this continues the streak of getting at least one win a season for you, but you had to go through a lot here tonight. We saw some chaos early, but that last green flag run, you mentioned the handling getting tricky. What did it feel like, and what was the toughest part of trying to get to the front?
Man, once you got about 10 or 15 laps on them tires, they got really hot, especially them right sides, and you would get really squirrely, very loose on entry, especially if someone was pushing you. And just from learning that, that's how I knew I could do that to Brock in that last lap and get him loose so I can maybe get a chance to pass him.
And it worked out perfectly. Well, you know, I know you're obviously not going for championship standings this season, but you're going to add another trophy to the collection. 2 more races left to go, 2 more technical tracks, of course, with Martinsville and Phoenix. Do you make another start this season, or do you think you're going to wrap it up until next year?
I hadn't planned on making any starts, but Martinsville sounds very intriguing. I love that track. Craig is probably one of the best people I've ever seen at that track, so you never know. I may show up next week and see if we can give him a run for his money. We'll see.
Sounds like a plan. Well, James, before we let you head out to celebrate the win here tonight, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Thank my lovely, beautiful, and sexy wife, Courtney, for watching and supporting my iRacing habit. Kevin Kirscher, Blackstone Management, Champion Power Equipment, and Best Buy for being on my truck tonight.
And James, thank you for talking to us. Congrats again on the win here at EchoPark Speedway, and hopefully we'll see you again next week in Martinsville.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, that's going to bring us to your second place finisher now, and that would be the 29 Sundrop machine. And I just realized here, I believe you guys could hear James there through desktop audio. We got to get this sorted out so that you can hopefully only hear him, or rather hear the rest of the drivers through Discord. So I apologize if that sounded a little bit weird. I think we got things sorted out now, so we're going to see if we can get this fixed here for your second place finisher. That is the 29 of William Mann Jr. William, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I got you, man. How's it going?
Good. Well, you finished second. Man, it looked like you had a couple chances there to potentially grab the win. What more do you think you needed to do there towards the end to maybe try to get that first win of the season here tonight?
I need somebody on my cheeks, man. It was close. I had some good runs, but the inside line was working a lot better there towards the end. I know I took it 3 wide. We were on the outside, and I saw Brock kind of turn a little bit, and I was like, this might be it. But unfortunately, James had enough momentum. He was ahead of us, and I just couldn't get to him.
Yeah, a little bit too much to quite get there, but overall it was a great run for you. Now, I do want to kind of ask you a similar question to what we did just ask your race winner. Man, we saw the trucks being a handful, especially during that last green flag run. What was making them so difficult to drive, and what was kind of the strategy you had to go with just to keep a hold on the truck?
I mean, some of these super speedways, there's those strategies. Just you gotta hold on to that sucker, you know, and see what you can get out of it. Coming out of 4, whether it's Atlanta or Charlotte, it's always gonna come around on you if you're not paying attention, especially in late runs when tires get hot. You know, just trying to keep up with some of the faster guys and trying to be there at the end and capitalize. But man, a couple seasons ago we got this win here with a bad wreck. Come around the high side, I took it 3 wide, and I hope we can get some more speed out of it. We just could not get past James right there at the end. He just had enough to hold us off.
Yeah, not quite enough, but overall, again, a great finish for you here tonight, taking home second. I got to think this generates some momentum going into the last couple races of the season.
Definitely. We don't have enough to take a trophy home, but we always love making noise and just having some fun.
Absolutely. Well, William, before we let you head out tonight to celebrate the second place finish, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Well, as always, you know, Grindstone, Champion Power Equipment, you know, Man's Maintenance, you know, that's how I pay to play to be here. So I just hope we can get some more top 5 finishes, and maybe one of these seasons we can knock off a championship, you know, top 2, top 3.
Absolutely. And William, thank you for talking to us. Congrats again on the second place finish, and we will see you next week.
Sounds good.
All right, and that'll bring us up to your final podium finisher of the night. That's the driver of the number 56, Brad Thacker. Brad, this is Austin up in the booth. You got a copy?
Hey, what's up?
Well, man, you finish in third here tonight. It's a good run for you, and you had to go through a couple of trouble spots here throughout the night. We saw you get into the outside wall, but you still found a way to bring it home in third.
Yeah, I hate to admit it, I was looking in my mirror and not out the windshield, and just forgot there was a dog leg coming up and had wheel damage. And I don't know how well the truck ran up front. It didn't feel bad, but as soon as I'd get out front, I'd get past pretty quick. But man, it was a heck of a night. I enjoyed it. I had fun. You know, like I always said, I'm the Michael McDowell of plate racing, but it was fun all in all. I hated at the ends. You know, I kind of clipped. I was moving up just a little bit as Brockhead was coming down, and you know, clipped him. I think took Craig and Tyler out. But yeah, whatever. I'll take a third. It is what it is.
Absolutely. Well, we saw you have some success during the late model season, at least at a couple of the tracks we went to. Martinsville, obviously, a similar style of racing. How do you feel about your chances next week to carry this momentum into a win?
Man, I love Martinsville. If I qualify well, I'll be okay. You know, if Rainier or Genzek come back, you know, they're on a different tier list than me. They're aliens, but Martinsville, I'm pretty strong at. If I can get up front and run the line I want to, I think I'll be all right. And then other than that, if I'm in the back, then it's just a race of survival by the end, and you know, it's a crapshoot.
Certainly can be. Well, before we let you head out, Brad, to celebrate a podium finish here tonight, is there anyone you want to thank or shout out?
Man, of course, Grindstone Developments, BSM, Kevin Kirscher, putting all this stuff on, letting us do this. I mean, I think it's been 5 years now that he's let us come out here and you know, blow off steam on the Tuesday nights. I never try to take it too serious. And, of course, you guys coming out spending your Tuesday night with us, that's always fun. And, you know, man, just mid-pack racing group. If you're 10th or 19th, has a 1 in it too. So I appreciate those guys for always showing up with me.
Absolutely. And Brad, thank you for talking to us. Congrats on the 3rd place finish, and we'll see you next week at Martinsville.
All right, appreciate it. Take it easy.
All right, that is going to wrap up your interviews here tonight from EchoPark Speedway. Another chaotic finish, but the man who gets the job done is one of the part-time starters, but former champions, James Harris, wins it here at Atlanta. We'll be back next week at Martinsville for more chaos at the Paperclip, and then one more race after that at Phoenix to round out the season. And I would say after tonight, Craig Janzak will likely take over the points lead, but it is still going to be neck and neck between him and his teammate Bryce Rayner. For everybody else, a lot of drivers still looking for their first win. A few looking to snag one more before it is all said and done. And we'll have all the action once again next week right here on PGR eSports. As for tonight, thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I hope you enjoyed. That'll do it for myself, Austin Green, here on PGR eSports. And until next time, have a good night.